If you know Robert Greene, you know his work is legendary for breaking down things like power, seduction, and strategy. Well, in this explainer, we're going to distill the core wisdom from his incredible book, The Laws of Human Nature. The goal is to give you a toolkit to finally understand why people do the things they do. And it all really kicks off with one big question.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You meet someone and they seem super charming, or maybe it's that colleague who's all confidence. But then they do something that just doesn't add up, and you're left feeling confused, frustrated, or maybe even a little manipulated. So what is really going on beneath the surface?
Well, according to Greene, the problem is that we are all basically actors. People almost never show their true motives. We're constantly putting on a show, presenting this polished version of ourselves to the world. It's a mask, right? To hide all the stuff we don't want people to see, our insecurities, our envy, you name it. But, and this is the good part, if you know what to look for, you can learn to see right past that performance.
Okay, so that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to give you that toolkit. We'll unpack 3 foundational laws from the book that, trust me, will completely transform you into a much sharper observer of the human world. So, where do we even begin with all this? You might think it starts with analyzing other people, but nope. We actually have to start by looking in the mirror. Greene's #1 rule, the big one, is that if you want to understand humanity, you have got to first master your own emotional and, let's be honest, pretty irrational nature. You know, we all like to think of ourselves as these super logical creatures, making all our decisions based on pure reason. But the reality, the truth is, our brains are just hardwired to be driven by emotion. These feelings are always there, kind of bubbling just under the surface, and they totally color how we think and act, often without us even realizing it.
Greene paints this picture of a battle going on inside all of us. On one side, you've got the emotional self. Think of it as your ancient, primal brain. It's all about survival, and it reacts in a split second. On the other side, you've got the rational self. That's the newer part of your brain. It's great at analyzing things, but boy is it slow. And here's the kicker. Most of the time, that emotional side has already made a decision and is hitting the gas before our rational mind has even found the keys.
Okay, so once we can accept our own irrationality, it's like a fog lifts. We can finally start to look outward with some clarity. And that brings us right to our next big idea, moving beyond the performance to read a person's true character. Now, when Greene talks about character, he's not talking about reputation or charm. No. For him, character is something way deeper. It's this ingrained stamp, something forged by all of our past experiences, and it's pretty much set in stone. And the craziest part, this force compels people to repeat the same behaviors over and over and over again.
So here's the takeaway, and it's a huge one. If you really want to understand someone, you have to ignore their words and just watch their patterns. That is the single most reliable predictor of what they'll do next. How do they handle stress? How do they treat the waiter or the person at the checkout? You know, the people they don't think they need to impress. That's when the mask slips, and their real character just leaks out.
Greene even gives us a few toxic character types to watch out for, and I bet you'll recognize some of these. You've got the hyper-perfectionist. That's the boss who micromanages every single detail. Then there's the drama magnet. You know, that one friend who is always in the middle of a new crisis. And of course, the big talker, the one with all the grand plans but zero follow-through. The thing to remember is, these aren't just personality quirks. They are deep-seated compulsive patterns.
All right, so we've looked at the individual, but what happens when you get a bunch of us together, in a group? Oh, things change. Our next law tackles this powerful social force and reveals how it can fundamentally change us.
Ever notice you act a little differently with your friends than you do when you're alone? Yeah, that's the law of conformity at work. In a group, this weird social gravity takes over. We become more emotional, less rational, and our desire to just fit in can completely overpower our own judgment. Greene calls this the downward pull, where our critical thinking just gets replaced by whatever feeling the group is sharing.
So how do you resist this pull? The answer isn't to become a hermit, don't worry. It's all about developing what Greene calls strategic detachment. First, become intensely self-aware of how you change in a group. Second, practice observing the group's dynamics, almost like an outsider, like you're an anthropologist. And third, and this one is so important, cultivate your own small circle of rational, trusted advisors to keep you grounded.
I know what you might be thinking. All this talk about irrationality, character flaws, and group pressure can sound a little dark. But Greene's point isn't to teach you how to be manipulative. It's about using this knowledge for the ultimate power, self-improvement.
Because when you really understand these laws, you gain mastery over your own emotions. You start to develop a deeper empathy for why people act the way they do. You see their insecurities, not just their flaws. And you become so much more resilient, way less likely to be manipulated or pulled into pointless drama.
This ancient quote, which Greene uses, just perfectly captures the whole idea. Character is destiny. By understanding and working on your own character, and by learning how to accurately judge the character of others, you fundamentally shape your own path in life.
So the question now is, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Will you start by observing your own emotional triggers, or will you look for those hidden patterns in others at your next meeting? The human world is a fascinating place, especially now that you know how to watch.